Hey, welcome back. Simon Lears here again. I'm going to do another pro guitar tip for you. I'm going to show you how to change strings on an acoustic, and I've already done a restringing lesson, but I've got another camera angle, a couple of different camera angles, so hopefully it's going to make it a little bit clearer as to what goes on. And also, I've done this one. This is my acoustic guitar, you know, so it's a slightly different way that the strings are held in place. So as you can see, I broke a string on this one already, which hence I'm changing the strings today. Yeah, it's been I don't play the acoustic very often, so it's not like an urgent thing when I break a string on the acoustic. But yeah, it'd be nice to be able to just pick it up and have a go, because I quite like playing lead on the acoustic. Just as a way of, you know, getting my technique right, just making sure that I'm not just relying on the fact that electric guitars are sort of easy to play, you know. Right, so I'm just going to take some of these strings. I'm not going to take all of the strings off, because what happens is all the tension goes off the neck, you know, and you can get sort of twisting and all sorts. Now I'm going to show you, this is my string winding tool, and it's got a built-in cutter as well, you know. So what I want to point out particularly is, so you might see better on this camera, there's a little cutout there. And that's not an accident. It's specially designed to be able to help get the pegs out on an acoustic guitar, because on an acoustic guitar the strings are held in the bridge by these pegs. You know, they look like old false teeth or something like that. So if I take that off, keep it nice and neat, and before I carry on, I'm going to just take out another string. I'll do the fatty one. This is a Norman acoustic. It's got a solid top, and it's one of the cheapest solid top acoustics you could get, you know. But because it's not a Martin or a Taylor or some make that you've heard of, you know, they're quite good value for money. So that one was a bit of a pain to get out, so that little U-shaped recess on my string winder came in handy for that. So I've got 3 strings still in place. Now these strings that I'm using are, let's have a look, Ernie Ball Earthwood Light. Now this pack of strings should probably be in a museum. I bought them many years ago. I haven't even looked at the strings to see if they've rusted up or anything like that, but so far so good. Being brass, they don't tarnish like the nickel ones do. The proof will be looking at the thin E and the B strings to see what kind of condition they're in, because they're pretty much the same as standard strings, electric guitar strings anyway. So right, what I'm doing, you can see how I put that in. Let me just recap that. Yeah, so the ball end, you just push it inside the hole, not too far, and use this old man's tooth just to push the ball end in. Now I'm keeping the loose end of the string quite tight as I push that in, because if you don't, you might think it's in place, and then as you tune it up, it'll suddenly go, you know, and it'll pull about half an inch out, you know. So yeah, so that's just to avoid any surprises. Make sure you keep a little bit of tension on the loose end there, and then say just push it in, and it should stay. Now this end, as I did on the electric guitar, it's going to be exactly the same procedure. Let me just double check that you can see what's happening there. Okay, so I might just zoom in a little bit as well. Now then, with the fat E string, You can afford to pull that quite tight, and what I'm going to do is just turn the machine head so that the holes are at 90 degrees to the rest of the string, or in other words, they're in line with the frets. Now this is the fancy bit. I'm going to take the loose end, and the most important thing about this is to keep it tight. Don't let any slack get into the string at this point. The string needs to bend around the post, so that basically when you take, if you do drop it, if it slips out your fingers, it kind of stays where it is, you know, and you can even push it with your finger like this. So as I push it a bit further around, it's tending to stay. I'm going to take the loose end, feed it underneath itself. Make sure you don't feed it under the A string as well. Pull that tight. So now you can see the loose end is still going the same way as the frets, but I've got half a turn going round the post there, or the capstan as it's called. Now to finish it off and to lock it in position, I'm going to just push down. So I'm putting a bit of force on the downwards force on the string there. I've got my finger very close to the post, and I'm going to bend the loose end in between my finger and the post to lock the string over itself. So you can see that's how that's gone there. I'm just going to double check you can still see that. Okay, cool. Once that's in place, there shouldn't be any way that string can kind of slip, you know. So and because I pulled the string tight to start with, I haven't got to do loads of turns to get it in tune, you know. So when it's in tune, I just chop the end off, keep it nice and neat, prevent me from stabbing myself. Now before I take the next one off, actually no, I will take the next one off because I've still got 3 strings on, so that's fine. Okay. I always use a string winder just for speed more than anything. So get that one out. So again, I'm going to use my string winder to get the old man's tooth out. Wrap it up. Get my new A string and repeat the process. So get the old man's tooth. So I'm going to push that down into the hole. I'm only pushing it a little way so I can still see that little section where the string's kind of wrapped over itself. So I'm not pushing it far, and then I'm trying to make sure that this old man's tooth is engaged with the ball of the string, so I know that it's kind of tight. So I'm going to push that down as far as I can. Actually, that one's quite loose. I've got another one here that might be better. Oh, it feels about the same. So okay. I think when the string's pulled at an angle, it should be okay. So yeah, I'll just double check you can still see that. Push it through, and then tighten it so that the holes. Oops, so that's it. So it's come up again. Cool. So that the holes line up with the frets. Now I'm not going to pull this one quite so tight. You see, it's a little bit got a little bit more slack in it than the last one had. So again, I'm bending that string clockwise on the top 3. On the 3 fat strings, you always do it clockwise. Pass it underneath itself. I'm going to try and keep the string as tight as possible as it goes around the post. So again, I've got my finger on my strumming hand just a couple couple of millimetres away from the post there, and I've got my thumb underneath the string like that, and what I'm going to do is just bring it over itself so it locks it in position. Once it's done that, so you notice it didn't spring back, you know, it's just kind of stayed where it is, and it'll do that as long as you keep it tight, you know, so you don't let any kind of looseness creep into the you know, any gaps between the post and the string shouldn't exist. I'm a little bit wary of that thing popping back up again, but I think because of the angle that the string pulls at, it should be okay. So I'm just going to chop that off, keep it tidy, and on to the next one. So the next one I have actually got off already, so as I took it off earlier. Okay, so unwrap it, get the ball end, just push it down into the hole using the old man's tooth. That's not what I normally call it. It's just a string peg, but old man's tooth sounds a bit more exciting, doesn't it? Cool. So pull it through the hole, turn the machine head so that the holes are in line with the frets. Take the loose end, keeping my thumb. Let's just double check that's you can see that. Yep, good. I've got my thumb right against the post, so I'm pushing against the post and I'm pushing against the string, and I'm bringing the string all the way around as far as I can. So now if I let go, it kind of stays where it is. So if when you do it, if it springs back, then you've just got to make sure that you're pressing harder against the post. Okay. So I just passed it underneath itself, and I'm pulling the loose end tight, and again I push my finger down, leave about 2 or 3 millimeters between my finger and the post, and I've got my thumb on my left hand underneath the string, and I'm using that to just lever it over itself, and then as I say, as long as you do it tight, it'll stay where it is. Cool, that's pretty close. Now I'm going to replace the string that was broken originally with a nice 22 gauge. I could quote the string gauges I use on electric guitars all day long, but acoustic guitars, because I could probably count the number of times I've changed strings on an acoustic on the fingers of my hand. It's not something that, it's not a regular occurrence, you know. Right, so the string's in position. I'm just going to thread it through the hole. Once again, turn the machine head so that the holes are in line with the frets. Now, because these machine heads are on the bottom, I'm going in a different direction. What I'm trying to do, just double check you can still see that, is get the straightest possible line as the string goes over the nut. So that means that on these three, the string has to sit underneath the posts. On these three, the strings have to sit on top of the posts. So it looks like they're kind of going opposite ways, but it looks neat. You know, it's the right way to do it. So to lock that string in position, this time I'm going to use my left hand finger and my thumb just to form the string around the outside of that post. As before, I'm going to just pass it underneath itself. Make sure I don't get it underneath one of the other strings, because that can be really annoying. Pull it tight, and this time I'm using my left hand index finger, and my right hand thumb is underneath the string, and I just bend it over itself like that. So it's using quite a bit of force. So that is quite slack, so I use the old string winder to too far. Chop the end off, and we're ready to do the next one. Now the last two strings on an acoustic are always plain. That means that they're basically the same as electric strings. So they haven't got that that wrap around the outside like the fatter strings have. So again, get the old man's tooth out with me tool. Should be a dentist. Okay, so I'll get the B string out. Oh, yeah, it's not a 4 drums, is it? It's still got the ball end on. If the string proves too troublesome to get off, I'm not going to keep it. Just chop it off, and it'll just come straight out. In the bad old days before I had any sort of income, I used to save all my old strings just in case, and they did come in useful, because I used to break strings a lot in the old days. Before I learned the art of control. Right then. So just pop it inside the hole, but don't push it down. Use the old man's tooth to do that. And then just make sure you've got a bit of tension on there so that it works. Now then, I'm going to ignore that for now because I've nearly finished. So they're going to have to wait. But you get the idea. So I say again, because we're on the bottom ones, I'm getting the string to sort of coil in a clockwise way, which means I have to get the loose end and turn it anti-clockwise, so I'm turning it the opposite way. Passing the string underneath itself, I'm using a combination of my thumb and my finger on the opposite hand just to lock the string over itself, and then I can tighten it, you know. Okay, just going to snip that end off. One more. See, it's not a difficult job. It's just, you know, it's like anything. It's easy when you've done it a few times. And although I haven't changed that many sets of strings on an acoustic guitar, it's a very similar procedure for something like a Les Paul or the guitar that I normally use for my jam videos, the Dean or the SG or anything like that. They're very similar. So just grab that. Again, this might have to be chopped off depending how stubborn it is to come out. Yeah, the thinning's not usually too bad because it's well, it's thin. You know, it sort of bends out the way. Okay, so last one. I'll just make sure that's still okay. Yep, just pull it that way a little bit. Okay, so using the final old man's tooth, just use that to push the ball inside the hole. Pull the string along, and I say again, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to leave a little bit more slack on this one. The thinner strings do sort of benefit from having a bit of slack because they don't grip onto each other like the fat strings do because they haven't got the wrap around the outside. So it's always best to have a little bit more coiled around the post so that it's less likely to slip. But it shouldn't slip. I mean, if you tie it on correctly, then you know, you shouldn't have any problems. Okay, now then, it looks as though I might need to get that, so cool, I think that's in tune. Love the sound of new strings. Just to talk about the Earthwood strings, these are the ones, they're just basic, you know, brass coated acoustic strings. I did use the phosphor bronze ones at one point. They're kind of less prone to that sort of squeaky sound, which is nice to have, but at the same time, they sound a little bit on the dull side, so I'll put up with a little bit of, you know what I mean. It's like when you're changing from, you know, from one chord to another, you tend to get a bit of a squeak. So I recommend put up with that and get a nice bright sounding acoustic. You know, it's going to be more fun to play. Right then. I've got to say thanks for watching, and I hope you found that useful. If you did, try and catch me on the next one. I'll see you soon. Take care.